Hi kids, welcome back to Binge Along 5, my ongoing review, my 5-year mission, 5-season mission to watch for basically the first time every episode of Babble-on 5, courtesy of one of my subscribers who sent me all 5 seasons, plus The Gathering, which we've already reviewed. Now, we're nearly finished on season 2. This is disc 5 of 6, episodes 17 to 20. Let's get right into it. As always, before I get started, if you've just joined, my subscribers are going up quite steadily, nicely. I'm really excited about what happens at 1,000 subscribers. I'll have to do some kind of giveaway or party or something. That'll be cool. So, Babble-on 5, season 2, episodes 17 to 20. So, episode 17 is called Knives. And, right. See, I've already made a mistake with the very first word. I've written the word Jeff. His name isn't Jeff Sheridan. It's John Sheridan. The Bruce Boxleitner character, and it's Jeff Sinclair was the commander from the first one, and I keep writing Jeff, and I meant John. So if I do say Jeff, think John. Okay, so John and Michael Garibaldi are playing baseball. They're practicing baseball using a sort of, not holosuite, but a kind of big area where they can take a swing. So that's quite cool. This is the pre-credits sequence, by the way. Also, Londo gets grabbed by a hooded character who's like, I'm going to kill you. And he's like, ah. Turns out it's his old friend, Urza Jaddo, who was like a dueling partner or something. Okay. Again, this is Rustler Watch. Robert Rustler, or Rusler, I think his name is how you pronounce it, is still in the credits, but he's not in the episode. I like Robert Rusler. He was Max in Weird Science. He was also the lead character in Vamp, and he should have done more. But he's due to leave Babble-on 5 at some point. Anyway, I've written Jeff again here. John Sheridan goes exploring in an area called the Triangle, known as Grey 10 on the station, which is a bit scary. And he finds a dead alien who briefly gets up and attacks him like a zombie. Then he has a dizzy spell. No one is... Oh, this is interesting. Yeah, the chemistry between Londo and his mate Urza, they're just so close and so, like, in awe of each other. And it's fine. But had that come out in the 21st century, everyone would be shipping them like crazy. How come two guys can just be the best of friends and really respect each other and say, you're the best, and have a drink and give us a hug and all that kind of stuff, without all the fandom going, they're in love? I don't get shipping. I don't like it. I think it's stupid and it's disrespectful to the writers and the creators of those characters. If the writer wanted them to be in love with each other, it would happen. Anyway, soapbox off. What's happening here? John hallucinates a CGI pterodactyl. In this case, it's called a Grylor, which is interesting. And it's not a bad CGI comp. The character's quite nice, and it's comped well into the live action. Urza, Londo's buddy, Londo's best friend, flatmate, ooh, shippers, is going to be declared a traitor to the Centauri, and he asks Londo to stand with him and defend him. Londo's like, I don't know about that. John is still hallucinating. He hallucinates his wife's ship exploding. He's looking out the portal, similar to that, and he sees his wife's ship explode, the Icarus. But it's a hallucination. And he doesn't know why. Londo calls Reefer.
I don't smoke the reefer.
He's back on the Centauri planet, and Reefer's not a very nice person. He asks the government to drop the case against his buddy, Urza. Urza falls out with Londo over his contacts with Reefer. He said, don't contact Reefer, he's a git. And then he challenges him to a duel. Going back to John, he sees his parents. He gets a vision of his parents, and then he goes out in a star fury. Going back to the duel, this is jumping back and forth, the two stories. my question here, how is a duel to the death with swords permitted on Babylon 5? It's supposed to be kind of neutral territory. Surely monitors and security would not allow that. Garibaldi should have been in there to break that shit up. Anyway, I keep writing Jeff here. John Sheridan is in Sector 14 and discovers tachyon particles, and Michael Garibaldi rescues him. Londo ends up defeating his mate in a duel, and I've got the quote here, "I will miss you." I was like, his mate is about to die. Urza's about to die from a sword wound, and one of his last sentences before he expires is, "I will miss you." It's like, well, no, you won't, because you'll be dead and you won't miss or feel anything. That's like me saying, "I won't be seeing you next week." And it's like, no, you won't be seeing me next week because I'll be dead, but I won't be seeing anything next week because I'll be dead. That's a strange line. I think too much about these things. There was an alien thing in John Sheridan's head, some kind of otherworldly intelligence, which was making him hallucinate things that, feelings of fear and regret and worry and all this kind of stuff, which is what the alien was feeling. And when John went out to this Sector 13, I think it was called, Sector 14, this creature took the opportunity to leave John at that point. And basically, going back to Londo's predicament, his mate Urza had basically kind of planned all this and sacrificed himself to save the honor of his family. So his death actually had it was a little bit, I'm sure he could have found a better way to do it and remained alive. But that's how he saved the reputation and the honor of his family. Right, episode 18 is called Confessions and Lamentations. Pre-credit sequence, a dead alien. Dr. Stephen Franklin, he's the guy who says, "Over dinner?" We'll keep an eye out for over dinner watch. He's concerned about a race of aliens, quite generic aliens on the station called the Markab. And there were 4 dead in 3 days. And also there's a lost transport. So they send out Robert Rustler Watch. He's in it. His character is called Keffer, and he goes out in a ship looking for the crew of this lost transport. John has a meal with Delenn and Lanier. Lanier? I always get that name wrong. Lanier. And yeah, it's like a comedy bit, basically. He's trying to have a meal with them, a typical Minbari meal, and there's tons and tons of, first we have to say grace, and then we have to do these things, and the rituals, go on and on and on. And it's like, we have to meditate after our first mouthful, and John nods off and is like, no, I was just meditating really deeply. And I don't see the point of that thing. I guess it was to add a little bit of levity or something. Zeta Squadron finds a transport, the missing transport with 200 dead, and it's full of Markab aliens, also dead like the 4 they found at the start. The ship's computer, something I noticed, when the pilot is talking to the ship's computer, it comes back with confirmed in a female voice, but confirmed is a little bit of a Blake 7 reference to Zen there. So the Markab are dying from a plague called the Draffa, which is 100% contagious. Apparently only among the Draffa, though, but they're not quite sure right now. There's quite a touching scene where a little kid gets found by Delenn, and the little kid's looking for their father, going, "Papa, Papa," and the guy's sitting down and he's dead, and it's like, oh my life. So they set up a quarantine. They realize the disease is airborne, and Delenn offers to go into our isolation zone with Lanier to kind of, try and show some empathy to these guys. And not knowing that she might die from this disease as well. She's just trying to be a humanitarian, can you call an alien a humanitarian? Before she goes in, she has a brief meeting with John Sheridan, and there's definite signs of them falling in love there. So that's the first signs. Here we are, episode 18 of season 2. She's beginning to fall in love with Sheridan, and this continues. What's going on here? The big spit. I've written the big spit. There's a close-up. I won't show you the gross close-up of Sheridan talking, and as he talks, he spits. Yeah, it's quite grim. Right. I've written here that I've mentioned a character's name here that I haven't mentioned previously. Lezanen? I'm not sure. Basically, this alien, he's one of the Markab, and he's got the disease, and he says, he's in sick bay, and he says, I think I've got the symptoms. Now's your chance to do some tests on me while I'm still alive and find out more about this disease. And he ends up dying, but they find a match between the disease and how to basically fix it using injections and stuff with antibodies. And unfortunately, it's a bit late, and all the Markab are dead. They go to the isolation area, open the doors, and it's just Lanier and Delenn sitting amongst all the dead aliens, including the child, which is pretty grim, and it's quite a deep one. Then they discover later on that this disease has spread like wildfire throughout the Markab on their home planet, and 2 billion of them have died. So basically the entire race, apart from a few stragglers. And that's heavy. That's pretty heavy. In continuity terms, though, I don't want to see any more Markab wandering around in the background in future episodes. They're supposed to be all gone. I think it was Garibaldi sitting at the bar right at the very end, and the bartender, considering he works on Babylon 5, but he's probably a privateer, is a complete a-hole. He's like, hey, what do you call 2 billion Markabs? A good start. 2 billion dead Markabs, a good start, or something like that. And he says, I heard it was the Vorlons that poisoned them all. And he's like, nothing ever changes. So yeah, that was an interesting and quite a bitter end to that. Episode 19, Divided Loyalties. Pre-credit sequence. Universe Today newspapers. There's quite a quaint wall-mounted newspaper machine which you walk up to, put your credits in or whatever, and you just tell the newspaper what you want to have printed on it, and it spits out a physical copy. And it's a little bit of a comedy skit, because Delenn does this hoity speech about how it's not good to spy on other people and be too nosy. And then Sheridan's like, after you, order your newspaper. And she's like, I'll have Eye on Earth, the Eye on Earth section. And he's like, so you're keeping an eye on Earth then, after just saying you shouldn't be nosy. And she's like, well, sometimes it's good to keep abreast of other races. I was like, suddenly you're a hypocrite. But it's more playful banter because they are falling in love. At the Mars colony, there are 2 guys, and they escape injured. One's called Lee, the other called Derek, which is a really futuristic name. All right, Derek. And they escape with a little information crystal, which is Babylon 5's version of a memory stick, I guess. And he says, take the danger. And he expires. This episode also marks the reintroduction of Patricia Tallman as Lita, a psychic who used to work for Psychor. What we got here? John Sheridan and Mike have a secret meeting in the toilets of Babylon 5. It's funny because you rarely see toilets in sci-fi. The first time I ever saw a toilet in sci-fi was in Firefly. Try and say that after 5 pints. Malcolm Reynolds has just finished having a wee-wee, and he just kicks the toilet and it falls into the wall. But yeah, Babylon 5, they've got gents' toilets, because it's somewhere they can talk sort of they do a quick scan for. I mean, he says he's scanning for bugs and stuff. I think he's scanning for actually like farty smells. So they have a meeting about what's going to be going on. We've got to keep this quiet because they're doing this sort of secret investigation as to what, politics and all that sort of stuff's going on. Talia and Susan have dinner. This is the first, also the first signs of more than a friendly attraction. I'm not doing a shipping. This is true. They are getting quite close, and Talia Winters is like, oh, what am I going to do about where am I going to stay and blah blah blah. And Susan's like, stay at my quarters for a while, and she has a shower and they have dinner, and you're like, yeah, something's going on there. And it's handled calmly, it's handled respectfully, it's not over the top, but that will be another one for the shippers to go crazy about. Oh yeah, they find an unidentified ship, and someone said there's some carbon scoring on this ship, which is I think a Star Wars reference. Boy, he's a lot of carbon scoring on R2. You guys have seen a lot of action. Lita is found on this ship, this unidentified ship. That's when they find Lita unconscious, and Mike Garibaldi remembers her from season 1, or was it from the pilot? I can't remember. If I was psychic, I would remember. There's a flashback to Kosh. Lita wakes up. Someone here's a traitor. One of you is a traitor, and I can prove it. I was like, oh, okay. She claims to have a telepathic password to reawaken a sleeper agent within Babylon 5. She says, basically, all I got to do is send this password into your mind, and that will bring up your implanted personality, which will kill your current personality forever. So whoever is the sleeper is going to completely change their personality. Ooh, who could it be? Well, John and Delenn have this more romantic banter, and he says something as, life has a way of kicking you in the butt, and she's like, but what? And he's trying to teach her about, human phrases and stuff, including bad language. And it reminds me of a joke when I used to work with, in a previous job, if you're not from Wales, specifically from the Welsh valleys, further north of Cardiff, the word but is short for butty, which is the Welsh version of buddy. Hey, buddy. So when I first moved to Wales at age 10, everyone was calling me Butty. And I'm like, what's Butty? And it's been shortened to Butt. So someone go, all right, Butt. And it's like saying, all right, bud. So me and my ex-boss used to go, someone would say, all right, Butt. You go, but what? But what? So she did the same thing, which I thought was quite funny. They do a bit of holding hands, John and Delenn. So there's a bit of more signs of romance there. Susan and Talia. Talia comes fresh out of the shower in full makeup. Wet hair, but full makeup. Not very realistic. Then they're talking, and they get so close. Then it cuts to a scene where they're a bit further apart. So I got a feeling they may have filmed a kiss, but they decided to cut it out. That's just my theory. I don't know the truth about that, but they were super close, because what happens later on is Talia wakes up. Is it Talia or Susan? Yeah, Talia wakes up in bed, and she reaches over to the mattress, and it's empty. So clearly she was looking for Susan. So guess what? They slept in the same bed. Shipping. Anyway, Lita gets attacked. John Sheridan does the one other thing trope that I mentioned a few episodes ago. In dramas, and I've seen it in Babylon 5 a number of times, where somebody finishes their scene and they sort of stop and they come back and they go, and another thing, blah, 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 blah. To try and put emphasis on the final point. So that happens quite a bit. Lita calls Delenn and says, I'm in trouble, I need some help. Susan confesses, now Susan doesn't want to be scanned by Lita or any other psychics, and she confesses to Sheridan that she is a latent telepath and has been since childhood, which is a little bit of a kind of Deus Ex Machina, so this didn't come up before. So she's scared of being scanned in case she's the sleeper agent. John's hallucination. He has a hallucination dream of Susan and a crow. Yeah, it's all in black and white. Susan's got a crow on her shoulder. I know what that's about. Then they do the password test. They get all the main admins, the main characters in the room together, and they agree to let Lita send the password to their heads one by one. This is a scene very reminiscent of The Thing, the 1982 John Carpenter horror sci-fi movie where they test everyone's blood in the room to see which one of them is the alien. This is that kind of thing. Garibaldi fakes it for a second. He's like, and they're like, what? And he goes, I got you there, which is a pretty stupid thing to do when they could have like shot him or something. Yeah, stop goofing around, Garibaldi. You're supposed to be chief of security. Montage of checking all the staff. They do a montage where loads of staff members come in to see Sheridan, and he's like, you're doing well. And behind the guy or the staff member, Lita's going, sending the password into their head, and it's nothing. She's like, nope, they're clean. So they work out who's trustworthy and who isn't. Shock horror. Talia Winters is the sleeper. She undergoes a complete personality change. They catch her, they restrain her and basically get her ready for jail. And I guess that's the end of Talia Winters' character on Babylon 5. I don't know if she comes back or not, so don't spoil it for me. But basically Susan goes to see her right at the end and says, are you in there somewhere, Talia? And she's like, haha, you crazy, stupid woman. I am now. Talia's dead and gone. I am who I am now, and blah, blah, blah. And she's quite horrible and bitchy. And yeah, it's a bit, okay, that's the end of Talia. Because I really liked Andrea Thompson, who played Talia Winters. I thought she was ridiculously hot, and I'm sure Susan Ivanova did as well. But I think that's the end of her, because the Babylon 5's resident psychic will now be Lita. Talking of Lita, she goes to visit Kosh, and Kosh met her in the past, and Kosh opens his suit, his encounter suit, which is a bright light. And that's the end of that episode. We're doing well. If you're still with me 25 minutes later, thank you for staying with me. We've got one more episode to go, episode 20, called The Long Twilight Struggle. In the pre-credit sequence, there's a ropey CGI extension shot. Really? What would that be? I can't remember. Again, I've said this in the past. I know this is a 1990s show. CGI was not ridiculously photorealistic at the time, so I'm not slagging it off. I'm just saying it looked a bit ropey. Londo goes to see Rifa on... that's the shot. It was basically, it's Centauri Prime. The government offices or the palaces or whatever. Londo goes to see Rifa on Centauri Prime. Rifa says, the war is about to end. Delenn is meditating and hears the voice, hello, old friend. It's like, ooh, who's come back? And they discover unusual signals coming from the planet Epsilon 3, which is where Babylon 5 orbits. So this unusual signals and the hello old friend I referred to is our guest star this week, actor called John Shuck, as a character called Dral, who's a Minbari. John Shuck, I like him a lot. He is probably best known for playing a later version of Herman Munster in one of the sort of continuations of the Munsters. But I remember John Shuck from, I'm assuming it's the very early 70s. It may be the late 60s, but I think it's the early 70s. He was in a cop show, and I'm going to put a picture up because no one except me remembers it. The cop show was called Holmes and Yo-Yo, and John Shuck played Yo-Yo, who was a detective, who was a robot. It was really hammy, really sort of... it was almost like a cartoon, really. Holmes was the detective, and Yo-Yo was this cop, but he kept, he had a chest panel you can open up, and he had all these gadgets, and he'd like stutter like Max Headroom because he was a robot, and everyone thought he's a weird cop, and it turns out he's a robot. But I quite enjoyed that. It's a sort of very early sci-fi type thing. In the era of the Bionic Man, the $6 Million Man, etc. This was cheesy robot cop long before RoboCop. Anyway, John Shuck is playing Draal, who in I think the first season. I'm trying to remember if it was a different actor playing Draal, because what happened was they were taken down to the surface of Epsilon 3, and they were made the keeper of the planet, the kind of the gatekeeper, the guardian, basically plugged into a wall and plumbed in a bit like a Borg in their alcove. Anyway, Draal is back in sort of incorporeal form, talking to people, and they kind of remember him. I did notice that Andrea Thompson as Talia is still in the opening credits, which is weird considering I thought she'd left last episode. Draal is the one who took custody of the planet when Jeff Sinclair was in it. So the Narn plan to attack Gorash. What is Gorash? I'm not sure. Basically, the Narn are going to plan an attack on the Centauri, which is going to leave the Narn homeworld quite unprotected, but they think this might frighten the Centauri, because the Centauri are essentially cowards. Meanwhile, Reefer is being a wormy little git, as usual. I don't like Reefer at all, and he's not a likable character anyway. And Reefer is like, well, we're going to attack the Narn homeworld and completely obliterate them if at all possible. Londo is, as always, kind of stuck in the middle. While on the one hand, he doesn't really like the Narns, or the Peshwari Narns for that matter. He kind of goes along with things because he's a bit spineless, let's face it. I have said in past episodes that I can't decide whether I prefer Jakar or Londo, because they're as bad as each other. But I think, well, you'll see in this episode, I think I'm sort of leaning more towards feeling sympathetic for Jakar and the Narn as opposed to Londo and the Centauri. John and Delenn plan to visit Draal on the surface of the planet. Reefer and Londo plan to be at the Narn home world to oversee their victory when the attack starts. The Doctor warns Jakar of the attack. The Doctor is basically treating a load of injured Narns, treating them with korma and rice, as I treat my Narn breads. He says, look, there's basically news that the Centauri are going to launch a big attack on the home world. So he kind of snitches on him, but it's kind of worth doing. John and Delenn arrive at the planet, and John's quite surprised. He's never been there before. He's like, wow, I may never want to go home. One thing I noticed about this episode is the lighting of the show is very flat. In previous episodes, especially when they're in like the underbelly of Babylon 5, there's lots of dark areas, lots of light being, and I did complain about sickbay being very badly lit in terms of loads of shadows and bright spotlights everywhere, and it's like, it doesn't look clinical enough. It's too discotheque. But this one just seemed a bit flat. It seemed like boring studio lighting. Draal says you will not be alone in future, so a kind of reassurance to Sheridan that whatever's coming, and we know what's coming, it's the shadows, then the Minbari will be on their side. The Narn fleet are intercepted by shadows. So the Narn fleet are basically wiped out by a bunch of shadow ships. One of the shadow ships gets damaged, but it's minimal. And war is declared. Babylon 5 lockdown bar fight. So they lock Babylon 5 down because as soon as the word gets out, people are going to start fighting and stuff. There is a bar fight scene which is quite fun. Nearly finished, guys. Centauri bombarding Narn using mass drivers, which essentially is ships that carry giant rocks and throw them onto the surface, smashing things up. The news bulletin says the Narn are being bombed back into the Stone Age, which is obviously, I think at the time, lots of language like that was used in American foreign wars, in the, when they go to Middle East and things like that, we'll bomb them back into the Stone Ages, when that sort of grandstanding kind of language. It says here, I think I'm siding with Jakar, which I said earlier. His performances and his lines are far more emotional than the Centauri or Londo. I think I sympathize with the Narn. It's a weird metaphor. The Centauri are very much like the Roman Empire. They're very grandiose and pompous, and quite powerful, but there's lots of politics and stuff there, and they're quite domineering. But the Narn are closer to a subjugated race like Native Americans, or even in the 60s a sort of segregated black population, for example, in the States. The Narn are talking about years of subjugation and slavery, and they have every right to feel aggrieved and want some kind of revenge. But Jakar's performances, the late great Andreas Katsoulas, who played Jakar, he can do angry and spiteful, but he can also do deeply emotional, and that's it's a great performance, to be honest, and we like him a lot. And Londo makes a speech and comes up with some horrible terms. He basically says, right, we're going to take over stewardship of the Narn homeworld now, and basically knock them all the way back to their subjugation days. And his terms are just ridiculous. If you hurt one of us, we're going to kill 500 Narns plus all your family, and just crap like that. It makes me I want to see Londo assassinated, basically. I know it doesn't happen, but I want to. So Jakar does a big speech ending with, "We will be free, even if it takes 1,000 years, we will be free again." And good on you, Jakar. Finally, Sheridan makes a speech about the coming darkness, meaning the shadows, and he says, "We will stand against darkness." Sorry that was a long video. I try to skip through these episodes as quick as I can, but I'm trying to summarize what goes on as well and give you my thoughts. And like I said at the beginning, I'm still enjoying the show. I'm interested to see where it goes. I do have to watch 4 episodes at a time, because there's 4 per disc, and there's a lot to get in. This is why I have to note it all down, because my memory is not what it was. At least I can't remember if it was any good before. But yes, interesting. Things are definitely more of a kind of ongoing story now, rather than an episodic thing. There are A and B stories, as I've said before. As always, the performances are good. I'm fairly sure we're not going to see much more of Talia Winters or Robert Rusler's Keffer. They're soon to be leaving, I think. And Lita's one of the regulars coming in. Interesting stuff. If you've seen Babylon 5 and you're a fan of Babylon 5, like I said before, don't have a go at me, because I don't know what's to come. I'm not, it's not a sacred thing for me. It might turn out to be one of my favorite shows, but I don't know yet. I've got to watch it all, and think about it. I can't treat things that I'm only just learning with the same reverence as someone who watched it decades ago and has had plenty of time to rewatch it and find a big love for it. This is all new to me. This is the point of watching something from the start, to see how it lands and to see what I pick up on. Anyway, interesting. It's a sci-fi. I mean, you can compare it to Star Trek in that it's like a sci-fi soap opera, but this is more like a soap opera because it's all set on one base, very much like Deep Space Nine, as I said yonks ago. And there is considerable evidence to suggest that Deep Space Nine ripped off Babylon 5 after they saw what J. Michael Straczynski was planning to do. I think the thing that, unfortunately works against Babylon 5 is it was filmed on a very small budget. much smaller than the Next Generation, for example. But they get the most bang for their buck. I think there's quite a lot of CG in there, CG actions. There's lots of prosthetic work, which is always top notch, and it's very good for what it is. Anyway, this video is far long enough. No one's going to be watching this here. There's no one watching now, is there? Really? I could do this. I could say, put the word "I made it" in the comments, and it'll never turn up in the comments because no one's watching, are they? Are they? Anyway, if you are still watching, I thank you for sticking with me through this breakdown. There's one more disc left. There's 4 more episodes on season 2, and then we're into season 3. I have no idea what's happening, except for the darkness is coming. Anyway, that's it for me for this week. Whew, what an editing job. I'm looking forward to this. Take care now. Bye-bye then. Computer, close doors.